It's Trial by Stone. So, today I'm reviewing The Howling, which was released in 1981. It was directed and edited by Joe Dante, who is pretty famous for directing Gremlins and Gremlins 2. He also directed The Burbs with John Tom Hanks, which is pretty underrated. It's really weird. Um, it's an okay movie. It's not bad. Um, but yeah, he's pretty well known. But this is a film that's kind of forgotten about. Um, but it's really cool. It's a werewolf movie, and it's it's a story that I found very compelling. It's basically it follows this news anchor who they are. I think, I think they're the start of the movie. They're using her as bait so that they can catch this criminal. I think I might be totally wrong. I think I'm wrong. I will say a discredit the movie. I think the beginning could be executed better. Um, it's a little hard to follow up until I really get into the groove of things. But from then on, it's pretty understandable, and that might just be me. I will say I tried watching this the other night ago, and I got like halfway through it, and then I ended up cutting it off for some reason, and I rewatched it tonight, and I watched it from start to end, and I had the same issue, the same exact issue, and I was actually watching it with my dad this time, but but yeah, so I don't know, that might just be me, but yeah, I kind of thought the ending could have just been executed better, story wise, just the way it was being told, and I think the editing goes right along with that. I will say I do really like the editing in this movie. It's different than what I expected. It's much more kinetic and um, at times really easy to follow, but at other times it kind of gets in the way of the storytelling. And it seems like that's a lot of my issues with just being able to follow the first like 20 minutes of the movie. Um, but overall, this is a very enjoyable film. It is endearing in a very odd way. Um, it's got great special effects. The special effects for this movie were done by Rob Bottin, who really famously did The Thing, which, if you know anything about me, that is my favorite horror movie ever. John Carpenter's The Thing from '82. Um, yeah, it's fantastic, and the special effects in that movie are just perfection. It's the best special effects. I would argue it's some of the best, if not the best, special effects in any movie. Period. Just practical effects. Um, and so he did the effects for this. And a funny story that I I learned when reading up on this some is Rick Baker was actually supposed to do the special effects for this. And if you don't know, he was the effects artist who did An American Werewolf in London, which coincidentally came out this same year as The Howling, 1981. So he was supposed to do the effects for this, for Joe Dante's The Howling, and then John Landis kind of pulled him over and was like, "Hey, let's do American Werewolf," and he was like, "Okay," and then he handed the special effects duty over to his protege, Rob Bottin, and it shows. The movie's great. The special effects in it are awesome. There is a fantastic special effects sequence, or not special, well, yeah, but transformation sequence, and it is just it's one of the best. I don't think it's better than American Werewolves, but it's definitely up there. It's really good. Um, it's there are some times where I'm just like, is that a puppet, or is that like people with stuff on their face? I cannot tell, and that's a credit to the movie. It's awesome. I love that I can't tell. That's great. That shows how good it is. A little bit more about the movie. Dee Wallace is the main star of the film. I would say she's really well known for E.T., which in my head I kind of put this together. This is just weird coincidentally. So E.T. came out, if I'm not mistaken, it came out 2 weeks before The Thing, and E.T. is widely credited for the failure of The Thing, because when E.T. came out, everyone was so used to this oh, it's just this nice alien that becomes he befriends this child, and it's just a really nice family movie. And then you go and watch The Thing 2 weeks later, and it's this miserable, nihilistic, gory um, alien film, and it takes this totally different approach. And a lot of people think, and not, I mean, it makes sense that was one of the big reasons why when the Thing was originally released, it flopped because people hated it. They thought it was gory or too gory, and the story didn't make sense. And I think a lot of that is because they were just too fed up over or too just into ET because that was a massive hit in '82. So I think it's interesting that she starred in that Dee Wallace starred in ET, but before that she starred in The Howling, which had Rob Bottin doing the special effects for it, and then E.T. was a good reason for why the Thing failed, which was also had special effects done by Rob Bottin. That's just a weird coincidence. It's very difficult to explain, but I just think it's cool. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. But yeah. What else? Because I have a little bit of notes for this. Dee Wallace honestly probably gives the best performance of the film. Um, she's really good in it. There's one scene in particular when she's um, yelling at her boyfriend, who looks a lot like Tom Atkins, who's in a lot of films. Night of the Creeps is one of my favorites with him in it. He's in a bunch, um, but he looks a lot like Tom Atkins. So she's just yelling at him, and she's giving this really good scene. Um, yeah, you really feel her issue, and what else? Oh, an interesting thing. They straight up animated the first transformation scene. Interesting choice. It doesn't look bad. It just kind of took me out of the movie because it's especially when the movie has had some special effects in it, like a little bit, not as nearly as much as it ends up having later on, but it has a little bit of special effects in it already, and then they just straight up animate it like it's a cartoon or something. It's like, hmm, interesting choice. Interesting choice. That might be budgetary stuff that they just didn't have the money to do another transformation because they already pumped a ton of money into the one later on in the film, which makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get your movie made. But yeah, interesting choice, nonetheless. Um, However, yeah, it totally makes up for, or the one later on in the film totally makes up for this one. It's so good. Um, the wolves in this film are awesome. It is, um, they're really mean. They they have these like really long fingers and these like hunchback legs. They're kind of beefy, and they have these like really long ears, which are kind of cool. I think some people probably won't like them, but I like them. I think it's a cool choice, and they really give me the same kind of vibe of the wolves from Neil Marshall's Dog Soldiers, which is a really underrated werewolf film from like the early aughts that has a lot of practical effects in it, and it's just a fun werewolf movie. A werewolf literally has. There's one scene where they shove a sword through the wolf's chest, and it's like pinning this guy up to the up to this wall with a sword poking out. He's trying to eat him. It's so cool. It's such a fun movie. And it's got some really cool actors in it, like Sean Penn, I think. Um, yeah, it's not a bad movie. Check it out, please. The movie does not get enough love. Dog Soldiers. But The Howling. Yeah, so the werewolves in this look, they really remind me of that. I really wouldn't be surprised if Neil Marshall was even influenced by this film, the way the wolves look. Because if I'm not being honest, if I'm being honest, I always kind of thought the wolf in American Werewolf in London. I love that wolf. It is a very iconic wolf, and I love that it looks like just a regular wolf. If it looks like a regular wolf that took like a ton of steroids, but he like walks on all fours and stuff. He doesn't like walk on 2 feet. It's just a really different wolf than you would expect to see in like a werewolf movie, especially when comparing it to stuff like I think it was Lon Chaney who did the original Wolfman for the Universal films, and that's just a different take, and I really really like that. However, if you want to see a much more gnarly, more modern take on this werewolf, this is that film. It is very cool. It's very cool. It's very cool. I feel like I because I tend to ramble. I feel like I didn't explain the synopsis of the movie very well. So I'm gonna kind of redo that just because I feel like I have to. Um, so it follows Dee Wallace, who's a news anchor. She um, gets put in this really bad situation, this really traumatic situation, and she's like, okay, screw this. I'm just gonna go take this. Like, she's like, I'm gonna go chill at this colony. They call it the Colony, which is a very real sketch name, and she kind of just hangs out there, and it's like this very like secluded place. It really reminds me of the um, I don't remember who directed this film, but The Endless. It came out a few years back. It reminds me of their like cult place that they live in. It was the oh, it was Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Yeah, they've done a few other films. It's not a bad movie. It's interesting. Um, it really wasn't all my cup of tea. I definitely want to rewatch it though. But yeah, it really gives me that kind of vibe of The Endless, or even another really underrated werewolf film from the '80s. I think it may have came out in '85. The Company of Wolves, which is really underrated. It is really cool. It's just this fairy tale, and I just love it for that. It really reminds me of Mac Mignola's um, werewolf story for Hellboy that he did, which is just awesome. But yeah, so she goes to this colony, and she ends up running into wolves. They start wreaking havoc, and yeah, and she kind of gets herself out of that, and she finds out that they're connected to the traumatizing event that she suffered before, and yeah, it's an interesting movie, but you're mainly watching it just to see werewolves kick the crap out of some people and see some really good practical effects. I mean, that's why I was watching it, because I wanted to see Rob Bottin's practical effects. And I will say I had only seen like brief glimpses of it. So this was one of those like pretty famous effects heavy films that a lot of people talk about when they're talking about effects heavy films, even though this is a lot more on the not talked about side of things. But it still has great practical effects, and it just doesn't get a lot of love. But this was one that I actually hadn't seen any of the special effects prior. Like, I'm sure when I was a lot younger, I probably saw it. I'm like 95% sure I had already seen the transformation scene from American Werewolf way before I saw the film, which is sad, and I hate that. But I hadn't seen any of the special effects for this, and I love it even more for that. It is such a treat to just have these awesome werewolves just come on screen. It's just a really cool transformation sequence and a lot of stuff. It's a good film. It's definitely good. I'd probably give it probably a 7.5. Kind of leaning towards a 7.5. It's not quite an 8. But yeah, it's got this very endearing quality to it. Like, it's just this interesting, odd story, and it's cool. It's cool. It's definitely worth it for the effects. Definitely worth it. And I think the behind the scenes are even more interesting than the film itself, to be honest. And but yeah, it is definitely worth a watch if you're into werewolf films or effects heavy films. And yeah, so this is The Howling, which is directed by Joe Dante in 1981. This is Trial by Stone. Peace.